the April meeting, and moving on now to agenda item number 10. Listen, team, quite a few of these items here, you would have read them. They're very, very mechanical. We need 3 people for an ad hoc committee here to do some work on whether trees are to be topped or not to be topped. And, of course, that falls under our vegetation policy. So could we have 3 volunteers or nominations, please, for this ad hoc committee? Now, that we did do another ad hoc committee at the last meeting to...
3 now.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about these ad hoc committees. What's the one we formed at the last council meeting?
Whakaaro.
To do... Oh, that was Rakawa, so that's totally different to this.
Yeah, the Kinlock structure.
Like Taupo shelter.
Yeah. Does any of those ad hoc committees want to take on this Titoki Gully trees issue? Or do you want a new one?
Already on 2 or 3.
Okay, well, we need a new one, right? So I need 3 names, please. Councillor Kirk, Councillor Hickling, was it?
Yeah, he lives in Taupo.
Councillor Hickling, I don't need to remind you of your past. You are a tree expert. Could I please have your voluntary?
Yes, you can have one.
Thank you. Councillor Hickling.
I'll go on.
One more, please. Who was it? Councillor Johnson. Could somebody please move that? Move. Councillor Crate second. Councillor Williams, all those in favour? Aye. Onshore Park water supply now. I'm sorry?
I'm sorry. Is there any? I've just got a member, Julie at the back, who's been waiting for a while, and it's just this is another one I've got, which is item 12. Is it? Would you mind?
Well, agenda item number 11 is going to take shorter than what you just spoke, because this has gone out to public consultation. The public have decided that they want the bore out of all the ways of getting water to them. So the suggested resolution, a new bore be drilled and connected to Bonshore Park water supply to ensure security of water supply. Mover, please. Move. Councillor Henderson. Seconded, Councillor Johnson. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Agenda item number 12 now, Mr. Ridd. The air conditioning. It doesn't work and hasn't for as long as I've been here. So why fix it?
Just introduce Julie Whiteye, who's going to present this item.
Whiteye.
Hi.
Julie. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Julie.
Your worship, councillors. I'm assuming you've read the item. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. This is the first time I've been here. You guys looked scary before. So the air conditioning is past its viable life. It's over 40 years old, and it's causing us a lot of problems in maintenance. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and it's really hard to get parts for it because the system is so old. So what we're asking for is some budgeted capex to upgrade the system and get it working so we have really good working conditions for our staff as well as you guys.
Would it be fair to say that we've actually got a responsibility about air quality in the building where we've got staff? Isn't that under some legislation?
There's an OSH requirement, and it's called thermal comfort, and it needs to sit in between 18 and 21 degrees. And at the moment, we have one person on our staff that has a thermometer in her room, and every time it goes over 25 degrees, she rings me.
Over that in mine all the time, and I've never rung you, but get involved. Okay, team, questions, please. It's pretty straightforward. You either fix it or you don't, and it needs a new one.
Well, if we're under legislation, if we have to, we have to.
That's if you want to treat your staff the way they're supposed to be treated under OSH regulations, amongst other things. And unless somebody can tell me how you can fix the air conditioning unit for less, Councillor Cook.
I just wondered, I totally appreciate the budget, but has it gone out will it go out for tender? Oh gosh, that's okay.
Could you please ensure that a company called Excel are used? Now, I know they're out of town, but we've done them in 3 cases recently that I know of, and they have been way under our commercial users. Councillor Henderson?
Yes, good.
Yeah, I support doing it. There's also the protection of the asset, which is the building, which is an asset of the ratepayers. That's the other issue that's worth considering in this one, I think.
Councillor Johnson?
Mr. Ridd, can I ask how much window latches cost?
A million or wood?
150,000.
Okay. Oh, we saved 5,000. We saved 5,000.
Got plenty of those done.
Well, I reckon we're, basically, team, hey, you're between a rock and a hard place. It is worn out. Its lifespan is gone. It needs a new one, or just keep chasing your proverbial. and we've done that for as long as I've been in here. Mike and Barry, this air conditioner has been a nightmare. You either fix it or you don't. So is there a mover? Councillor Johnson, second to Councillor Henderson. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Change is part of it.
What's it up?
I think what it's been like for the last few months. I was going to say that.
This next agenda item here, leasing this land, we spoke about in the bus. You see, the yellow was the piece I pointed out that I felt we retain, and that we've got something great and big should go there. The rest, that's the flight plan that comes in. It tells you helicopter entry and exit lane. So anything that was to go on there has to go through the safety committee at the airport before it even comes to TAA. So there is a suggested resolution here as an appendix. Hopefully you've got it. We're not allowed to lease land under Local Government Act longer than 35 years. So I would promote the idea that in the suggested resolution that was handed out to you as an appendix is that we put the letters 35 in there, because if someone's going to build a hangar of any substance and put a big building on it, they certainly need length of tenure going forward. If you also read the article, I think I explained it in the bus. Anything that the airport committee, that they lease out there, any income they get off that land, 90% must be returned to council.
The government doesn't get 50-50.
No, they get 50-50 of the 10% that's left.
If there's a profit made by the airport.
So, I don't know, Alan, do you want to talk any more about this? You're on the airport committee with Chris and I.
I just suggest, Mayor Rick, that we add the words for a period of 35 years with right of renewal.
That's just an appendix. No, you can only have a total length of 35 years. So you have to cross out with rights of renewal out, because that's as long as you can lease a piece of land without doing a subdivision. Move. And second, move, Councillor. Second, Councillor. All those in favour? Aye. Aye. Chief Executive Officer's report. Now, who's that today? You, Mr. Mahira.
Yes.
You were yesterday, eh?
I'll take it as read. There's just one comment that I'd like to make, and it's partly as a result of an issue raised at the last council meeting in the financials, and also a subsequent letter to the editor. And we talked about the investment return on our assets versus our cost of borrowing, and a very simple equation was used that if the cost of borrowing is greater than the investment return, that we should consider using those investment funds to reduce debt. Life's not quite that simple. The TEL fund we use, for example, as our catastrophe fund. So as a result of that, we do not have to take out catastrophe insurance in respect of all the district assets. There is a substantial cost in catastrophe insurance, and in the way the insurance market is, it's an increasing cost. So that is another element that needs to be taken into account in conjunction with the investment return. The second point is that the level of Standard & Poor's rating that we have is supported by the fact that we have such a large investment book. Should we use that investment book to reduce the debt, then our credit rating with Standard & Poor's would reduce and our cost of borrowing would increase. I'm just flagging those as just two examples of how life's not just quite so simple as far as comparing an investment return with a cost of borrowing. There are a lot of other reasons why you manage your treasury books in the way we're doing. That's independent of any direction as far as a TL fund is concerned as a separate fund. But I just thought I'd just raise those particular points because they were mentioned at the last council meeting in respect of the investment return now levelling out. As it has historically, it's been less than the cost of borrowing. But apart from that, happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Henderson?
Yeah, my question is around the first issue you addressed there, the disaster recovery insurance. If we didn't have the TEL fund and we're using it for those purposes, could you give us some estimate of what that might be costing us annually?
We are looking at that. Brian, do you have?
I don't have an exact figure, Mr. Chair, but we don't belong to the Local Authority Protection Program, which a lot of councils do belong to, because we have the TEL fund as a reserve fund. That's been council's position for. Certainly, in the event of catastrophe, the Treasury Management Policy has that fund listed as being available for use. So we are going through a disaster recovery plan, as you are aware now, looking to develop one. Certainly the members of the Emergency Management Committee will be aware of that, and that's part of the consideration. I can't give you an exact figure on what the premium cost would be to belong to a LAP program, because the Christchurch situation has changed that ballpark.
Would it be fair, though, to say that in lieu of not doing that, we would be up for possibly hundreds of thousands or 10? Yeah, okay, hundreds. Thanks.
Well, in the hundreds of thousands. Yeah. Yeah.
Only 10 of those for a mil.
Yeah.
It would be significant.
Oh, sorry, Nicola. Oh, sorry, Councillor Williams. Then Councillor Dallin.
With regard to the first paragraph, the annual plan consultation with ratepayers, could you give me some feedback about how many people have showed up at those very expensive consultations around the region that we send our council staff and councillors out to?
Well, I've attended 2 or 3 myself. At the Riverside Park one, there were 3, maybe 4 members of the public that stopped to ask questions, and that was on a very busy day at Riverside Park. And we have had similar sorts of numbers in other events. I think we had only a handful at Mangakino, wasn't there, Councillor Treman? It's interesting, on the net today I read that a number of councils have had very low turnouts this year as far as their public consultation meetings. So what we're experiencing in Taupo is not dissimilar to most of the rest of the country, because everybody has tried to pull back on their rate increases.
Thanks, Mr. Manhenant. The spin here actually says that they've been very effective in raising the profile of the draft plan. It's a sentence which I guess is a little bit questionable after what you've just conveyed. But I'd also I know we have to do it by law, but I'd also just like to question the fact that are we doing it the right way? Because if for the amount of effort and investment we're getting such a poor response from the public.
Well, perhaps one way of looking at it is that we've been so effective with our communication that we haven't been required to answer any more questions.
Mr. Chairman, we've still got over 100 submissions, so over 117 submissions, which is a higher number than I think most people expected, and definitely what the sweepstake around the office here was. I think that's probably a reflection that that the word was spread. It's just, again, and I agree with you, it's about how we spread that word. And what we generally do after each of these things is debrief as staff in terms of what the most effective way is, and then have a discussion with you leading into the next major consultation about how we do that. And it may be that we need to freshen up the ways that we do it for next time, and we'll have a think about that and bring that back to you leading up to the next annual plan.
Mike, and then, Councillor Downer, then Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, I've been involved where we've had big ones in the Great Lakes Centre and, coincide with civil defence and all that in there. But simple fact is Councillor Williams, we do, under legislation, have to consult. And I think the comment of the CEO is more like the business after 5, the Chambers of Commerce, where we've talked about the annual plan, where there's been a good uptake in that. But there's always traditionally, when you go away to like Whitcoulls or Riverside Park or the New World down Turangi, there's only ever 3 or 4 people that normally come, that turn up every year, that come to it. But it's part of our process that we have to do. We have to be out there open and transparent.
Councillor Henderson.
yes, we do have to consult. How we choose to consult is completely up to us within reason. How we're consulting in this regard so far is an abject failure and has been for the entire time I've been elected. Every time we bring this issue up, I say the same thing, which is essentially that if you keep doing the same thing and expect a different outcome, there's a definition for that. Okay? If 2 or 3 people turn up, it is not successful. If we're doing this as a box ticking exercise as required under the Act, then we're not doing our jobs. I would suggest rather than how we market these things, we actually look at how we do consultation completely. And yes, we should do these public things, but we should do less of them, and we should look at some other means, because at the end of the day, if people are engaging with us on this limited basis, and I went to, I think, 4, maybe 5 of these, and the average number of people that would have sought out information to me or others present is about 3. Okay? So it's not working. You can market it as much as you like, you can keep doing the same thing, you'll come up with the same answer, and you'll sit here next year and have the same discussion. I suggest you review the whole thing, get serious about how you do community consultation and engaging with people, and stop treating it like a box ticking exercise, which it sometimes is, to be honest.
Anything more from the Chief Executive's report? Councillor Kirk?
So I agree with Councillor Henderson, but I also think that it is really smart to tap into those Chamber of Commerce events and business after 5, because it's a really cost-effective way of getting through to people that are business owners and people that have a vested interest in the community. But on the whole, I definitely agree with Councillor Henderson. I think it needs to be looked at.
Anything more from the Chief Executive Officer's report? There being none, do I move it and a second for receiving it, please? Move, Councillor Kirk. Second, Councillor Truman. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. Strategic Manager. That will probably be you, Mr. Menhen. No, you're the CEO today, so who does this job?
I think.
Can you multitask? Will. I think Will is supposed to be.
Mr. Ward.
Mr. Ward.
Paper.
It's really a mechanical item. It's our council-controlled organisation drafts annual statements. That we're comfortable with them. That's where we want them to head. That's what we want them to do. Is there any comments on them? Does anybody? It's a legal fulfilment that we have to fulfil. I'm sorry.
Is this all of the ones we're receiving?
Yep, we can do them all. Yep, we got 5.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment on one in particular, which is the Destination Great Lake Taupo one. I see a new statement of intent, but I don't see a lot of detail about what they're actually going to do in terms of how it will be delivered. And I'd like to see more detail on that. I think particularly given that some of the expenditure related to what they're doing is significant, particularly around the website, which I've drawn attention to before.
Any reply to that, Mr.
Yep.
Oh, Will, it's down there. Sorry, I didn't see you there, bro.
That's right. Okay, so
Samuel, sorry.
Yep. So yeah, through the chair, this is the opportunity for council to comment on the SOI. So can we just grab a bit of a summary for what we'd like to do for that part of the GLT, and then I can reflect that back to them.
When do you need that by?
The statement of intent, our response to the statement of intent is due by the 1st of May. So
tomorrow.
Yep. So when
Mr. Henderson going to get back to you tonight.
Yep. So when we've reviewed the statement of intent here, we've looked at the statement of intent last year, and our opinion is that it's a definite improvement. They've actually gone into a lot of detail looking at both the performance objectives, and they've also done the nature and scope of activities, looking at what they do and what they don't do. They've also talked about how they're going to get there, so they've broken that down to 3 pillars. So there's page 15/14. They've talked about people, collaboration and joint venture, and special interest marketing and programs. If you go back to the presentation that Ms. Freeman and Ms. Guy gave at the last council meeting in Turangi, they talked a lot about needing to be agile, and so the budget that they've set out there is obviously buckets that they're looking at using and how they're proposing to get those performance objectives. They're saying that they need to be flexible, so if we're not happy with that, then we should be signalling it.
Agile word. Councillor Henderson.
One of the significant things in this projection for the revenue is there's a $120,000 drop in the revenue off about, I think, 750,000, 800,000.
That's the eyesight revenue, is it?
That's the total revenue of DGLT.
Why is that? Because of what I'm thinking, is it?
We did that for 3 years, though, didn't we?
I think it was incorrectly reported last year or something, wasn't
Through the chair, if I could just comment, page 15 bar 17, I assume is what we're referring to with the budget. If I refer back to again the presentation that Ms Freeman and Ms Guy gave regarding the budget, they spoke about the difficult nature of the tourism industry at the moment. They spoke about the joint venture marketing and how they weren't getting the money in that they required. So without speaking on their behalf, I would assume that that drop in revenue would be part of that basis.
Yeah, the drop in revenue I refer to relates to the figures we were provided for in the 2012-13 Statement of Intent. Budget 14, full year 14, 2014 was revenue 857,000, and now we have total income given of 734,000. So I just point that out because I think it's significant in the decisions concerning level of funding and that sort of thing.
Okay, Councillor Kirk.
Does the income take into account under that with eyesight the possible income generated off the bus stop being located outside the eyesights and the eyesight being like a tipping office with the $4 per booking fee or whatever it is?
Again, through the chair, I can't give you the exact answer as to how much of that's included. I know that they are meeting weekly with both Intercity and our staff in regards to that changeover. With regards to the $4 booking fee, I know that that's been implemented without any problems. In terms of what they've put in their full year budget for next year, I know that they have not costed that all out because they just simply do not know if they're going to be getting 10% of the travel centre revenue or 100%. If I could also just respond to the question raised before regarding the drop in income. Yes, the income's dropped. From my read of it, their requirement for funding has stayed the same. So that to me says that while they've dropped in income, they've also cut their expenditure.
Does anybody want anything further? Okay, being none, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 CCOs there, the suggested resolution is that we make the following comments on its council-controlled organised draft. 13, 14 statements of intent. Is there a mover? I'll move. Second it. Councillor Downard, all in favour? Aye. Alright. Carried. Agenda item number 16 is purely mechanical, I believe. It is our submission to the Resource Management Act reform that's taking place at the moment. I think those bullet points there, 1 to 6, really encapsulate our position and what we want out of this going forward. Does anybody have any questions? I'm sure Mr. Green has been involved in this quite heavily.
Actually, I wouldn't mind passing over to Hillary to see if...
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Hillary, I didn't see you stick up there. Hi, Ms. Daniels, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Would you like to...
I don't have anything to add, really. It's all there in front of you, and I'll just take it as read and take any questions.
Councillor Downard?
Yeah, I went to the workshop with the minister, and one of the things that kind of stuck in my head is said that they're not making it monetary, but obviously there's going to be a huge cost to to coincide with regional plans. Is there any further, like with the mural, like they're looking at plans? Is that one avenue that we can go down to try and get a lot of that work done through the mural forum? Because that was one of the things they were looking at, was all the plans in both in all the districts, and obviously Waikato regional borders like many regional councils on a lot of different districts. Is that one way that we can leverage a little bit of headway?
Yeah, well, I guess one of the issues that we had with the discussion document was it's still quite high level, and we're still actually trying to figure out what they actually mean with some of the proposals that they've got in there. For example, there's talking about combining the plans. We're still not quite sure how that would work for us in a district which is covered by 4 regions. Whether that means we end up with 4 regional plans attached to ours, plus all the district plans that are also in those regions. We can't actually figure out how that physically is going to work. So I guess it's probably going to be a process of
That's why I thought
If
that
further
mural
information
form would,
comes out, yeah.
because obviously it incorporates all the districts. So, you know, there could be a lot of discussion on that to see whether, as you say, I mean, the dynamics of, I mean, most of the districts have got lots of regionals bordering on them, haven't they? We've probably got, four's probably
we're
the highest,
most,
yeah.
But Rotorua also is.
Having said that, they're pretty small areas, and we are part of the Waikato. I know we have a couple of pockets of land, but yeah. Councillor Henderson?
Just in reply to Councillor Darnell's question, I believe the Mayoral Forum, one of their work streams is looking at governance and one's looking at planning, and I think, yeah, but the rationalisation and alignment of plans is also one of the things that they're looking at, and I believe that they've identified that there can be some money saved and some things done better there.
When I was spoken about, or heard it spoken about, and been involved in conversation with the other mayors, they just don't want to do it. You know, it's even issues like signage. In Taupo, we have our signage rules, whatever they are. You know, and another town they're allowed this size and they're allowed this size, and they do it for a reason. Queenstown only allow you to have a sign, I think it's 400 by 400, because of their natural escape. They have their reasons for it, but I'm all for one and one for all. Have one plan for the whole country as far as I'm concerned, but I'm too realistic and simplistic, I guess. But everybody's saying that the rules that we have here probably wouldn't necessarily apply to the likes of Tokoroa or Hamilton or something like that, simply because of our soil types. Completely different type of country to everybody else. But, however, I will table this on Monday because I've got another mayoral forum on Monday, and I will show the mayors that is our submission to the Resource Management Act submissions and see what they think of it, whether they're in support or not. I'm sure they will be because they're making their own submissions, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Can I just clarify one point? At the moment, the proposal is actually just to combine the documents physically. So take the Waikato Regional Plan and hole punch it and add it into the Taupo District Plan.
Overlay it.
Yes, they're not talking about us writing a whole new plan with the Waikato region. On a bigger basis, they are talking about a template, a national template of standardised terms and definitions that we will have to, or may have to, if it goes through, look at.
Would it be fair to say that if somebody comes in here to apply to a permit to do something, that if this happens, there's more hurdles for the developer to jump because he has this other plan overlaid on top of the district plan?
The actual rules wouldn't change. It would just be that our plans would be together.
There'll be no more cost to the developer, but there'll be a cost to you and the ratepayer in terms of putting these plans together in the first place. So the question is that of value? I guess where they're looking is, say, in an Auckland situation where you've got a unitary council and you've got one rule book, so people need to look in one place. And for big developments, when you're having to apply for 2 or 3 different consents and from the regional council and us, the district council, it probably does make sense. What we're saying is with having the 4 regions and all those things, it just makes it complicated, because are we going to end up with a rule book which in fact is this big and complicates the process and costs us a whole lot of money to get there, rather than the current status quo, which actually works quite well for us.
I think the CEO in his summary, in his last paragraph, kind of hit it on the head on 14/3. That just says that the direction is clear, but however the implications for the nation and the community at present, the detail about how we get there is lacking, and I suppose that comes down to how much it's going to cost us in that period of trying to do that without having that information. It's typical stuff that's sent down from central government, and it leaves us in a bit of a limbo, because how far do you go? Are you the first council off the rank to go and do as much as you can at a cost, and then find out later on that it's too much of a cost or too hard of a deal? So, Hilary, how far do we go?
Yeah, and they're talking pretty quick time frames. They've said 5 years. So it'll be interesting to see the next round, what comes through and if they stick to that.
Okay, well, there's a suggested resolution there, so move, please.
Yep, I'll move.
Seconded down, all in favour? Aye. Item number 17 is submission on the freshwater reform. I don't really, this is pretty mechanical too, I'm afraid. Well, I'm not afraid, but I'm sad to say. But does anybody want to ask any questions or have any input into this? Or perhaps move and second the suggested resolution? that you approve the submission on the Freshwater Reform 2013 and beyond.
Yeah, I'll move because again, that was talked about at that workshop with the minister, and I think this has huger implications for us than the other one. Is that true to say, Nick, or not? With the Waikato River and Lake Taupo.
There's a hell of a lot of water out here, isn't there?
So, Mr. Chairman, just through our time frame, like obviously it's our elections this year, but obviously it's central government's elections next year. Does that give us a little bit more time to whatever's obviously there's not a great day, as you say, detail come out? Can we just put it off, do our submissions, but put it off to a little bit, or just kind of act a little bit dumb on what they're having until that comes? Because could it all change after, elections? National could get in again, or it might not. Or does once it's set in, it carries on even once central government changes government, or stays the same? Well, they've done that with education, yeah.
Well, National does that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I've been to a couple of the presentations that have been given, including the one where the minister spoke in Rotorua, and I think it's really important going forward that councils around the country look to push back on some of these things and actually ask for the detail, because Nick's right, there is a lack of detail. And the meetings I went to also, to my feeling, they felt like there was a lack of general interest in feedback. They kept talking about feedback, comment and input, and then almost in the same breath we were being told that, well, this was going to happen anyway, more or less. So I think at this stage I just want to be explicit about that. I don't feel from the things that I've seen that this government is that interested in really consulting with local authorities and the key people who work with this Act as widely as they could be within any sort of reasonable time frames. I mean, this freshwater document, for example, that we're providing feedback on, I think it was maybe 10, 14 working days or something like that from the time it was published until when feedback closed. So anyway, I rest my case on that. I just don't think it's genuine.
Anything more on this agenda item? If not, I'll move on a second, please. Move, Councillor Downer. Second, Councillor Johnson. All those in favour? Aye. Number